The Errors of the Ignorant, number 1. This is a series based on the comments made by people who fail to understand the true nature of narcissists and the narcissistic dynamic. Whilst these comments may be well-intentioned, they are incorrect, perpetuate misunderstandings, and in many cases create false hope, dashed expectations, and perilous outcomes. Number 1. Just love him as much as you can, and it will work out. It is a common response by those who fail to recognize our kind and also have no understanding of what we are and how we operate, to tell the bewildered victim that the cure to our odd and unpleasant behavior is to shower us with love. Note that here the timing is important. We are devaluing you, and therefore you are already on that slippery slope towards disengagement. If, as someone who has been ensnared by one of our kind, you turn to somebody who is empathic for advice to understand what is going on, you will fall foul of their empathic trait of being a love devotee. This belief in the power of love, whilst a good trait in itself, is corrupted to become a burden when it is added to the equation with our kind. This near slavish belief in the fact that love will conquer all ills and overcome all problems results in an understandable, albeit misguided, injunction to apply more love to the problem with the narcissist. It is not going to work. It is too late. This is suggested most often with regard to the romantic dynamic between victim and narcissist. The advisor fails to recognize that the temper tantrums, the silent treatments, and the name-calling, amongst so much else, are manifestations of the ignited fury of a wounded narcissist, and instead, the advisor attributes them to something else. It does not matter what the chosen descriptions might be, because they are wrong. This means that the advisor fails to identify that the victim is in the grip of a narcissist in this romantic entitlement. They also fail to recognize what this means in terms of behavior, and as a consequence, they see the application of love as a panacea which will cure all ills. This does not work with our kind. There is no issue in providing us with more and more love during the golden period. Indeed, this is what we want, and as a consequence of that approach, you provide us with plenty of positive fuel. All is well. Of course, your confusion and bewilderment begins when we start to devalue you, and you cannot understand why it is happening. Thus, you turn to someone else, some advisor, to try to gain answers from these unfathomable behaviors, volte-faces, and about-turns. The devaluation may occur for several reasons when in the romantic dynamic between narcissist and intimate partner primary source. But in the majority of cases, it is because of the failure by the intimate partner primary source to maintain fuel at the right level of frequency, quantity, and potency. If you love us more, and therefore provide us with more positive fuel during devaluation, then there are several outcomes which can occur, but ultimately they all arrive at the same place. Failure. 1. If the problem was that your positive fuel was not stale, but you were not providing it as often and as in the quantities we wanted, then an extra push of loving behavior from you will remedy the problem, but only for a short while. You will be granted a respite period by the narcissist as your positive fuel shines once again and the golden period returns. This may last for a few weeks, perhaps months, but it will ultimately result in your finding yourself in the place detailed at point 3, which I shall mention. Number 2. If the drop-off in your positive fuel was caused by quantity and frequency issues, then devaluation has begun, and there is a risk that we have begun the process of engaging with finding your replacement. Dependent on how advanced those searches are, and how effective the prospective replacements are responding, even though you increase the frequency and quantity, it may not be enough to save you from continuing devaluation, because of the interaction with one or more candidate intimate partner secondary sources. Thus, loving us all the more does not work, and your devaluation continues. Number 3. The problem may not be the frequency and/or quantity, but the level of potency. We have, in essence, had too much of a good thing, and our familiarity to your potent positive fuel means it has lost its allure. Consequently, by trying to give us more of something we have become sickened to, it's not going to work. It is like someone becoming tired of strawberry ice cream and you turning up with a huge tub of strawberry ice cream. You will not stop the devaluation. Even if you manage to secure a respite period, as I have just explained at point 1, eventually the familiarity issue will appear and you will find yourself in a situation where the potency no longer is effective, no matter how hard you try to love us, and show that love and devaluation will continue. The consequences of this is that advising somebody to continue to love and to show even more love for us are 1. The creation of a false hope that the perplexing behavior we engage in will end. 2. Victims will remain in an abusive and misery-inducing relationship for longer than they need to. 3. Exposure to potential harm. Whether it is the physically explosive response of a lesser narcissist through to the enduring mind games and psychological torture of coupling with a greater narcissist. The risk is increased of some form of harm, sexual, physical, psychological, and/or financial, arising. 4. A complete erosion of the victim as they keep giving and giving of themselves, spurned on by this apparent authority that love will provide them with the answer to the issue and make it all good. 5. A further false hope whereby, if a respite period has arisen, the victim is conned into thinking that this increased loving has been successful, when in actual fact, all it has done is secure a stay of execution, and most likely made the eventual resumption of the devaluation all the harder to endure. 6. The pollution of the victim. At some point, the victim will be disengaged with, and the failure of this apparent panacea of applying increased loving runs the risk of creating cynicism, so that the victim feels unable to, and/or unwilling, to ever try to love someone else. This advice, provided by somebody who is ignorant about what we are, is tantamount to saying to somebody, stay in the burning house, because eventually the fire will stop, and then you will be okay. If you are in the romantic dynamic with our kind, all the continued provision of your love when the devaluation has already commenced will achieve is to cause you to be bound to us, and it signals to us that there is more negative fuel to be drawn from you because of your desperation to remain with us and to try to apply overly a cure to a situation which has now become one which cannot be cured.